Hi guys, and welcome to this new video where I'm going to talk about the Gigabyte Aero OC variant of the RTX 3070. But before we begin, let's briefly touch on the design of this card, which is indeed pleasing to the eye. The whole body is white, and due to the magnificent color effect on the front, this is a truly out of the order GPU that successfully distinguishes itself from the competition. Worth mentioning is the fact that this whole white design vision can be harsh for other components, as white CPU coolers or motherboards are either harder to find or cost more than their black counterparts. This principle naturally applies to this GPU itself, which is more expensive than the competition. I will of course talk about this in detail later, though I wanted to mention this factor right now. And while we are on it, I should mention the huge thermal solution that Gigabyte has built for this 4070. Moreover, this card offers two choices for the BIOS. The first one is called OC, which stands for overclock, and the other one is called silent, whose functionality is implied by the name. Although we will get to the performance of the card itself, I can confidently say that there is not a huge difference between those two modes, which can be toggled from a little switch near the power supply cable entry. With a massive heatsink and 3 fans to cool it down, you will have to torture the GPU with terrible cases in order to make it thermal throttle. Since most of you have probably not gotten their case from AliExpress, I dare suggest switching the GPU to silent mode, which will be able to offer a much more pleasant experience due to the fans being set at a silent profile. While running the GPU in silent mode, I observed it reaching a maximum temperature of about 65 degrees Celsius. However, when used in the OC profile, the temperature can be up to 5 degrees lower. Thus, as I said, one should use this GPU with the silent mode turned on, which will not have a great impact on the card performance, but on the fan speed, which will improve the experience that you will have with this card. To give you an idea, this card occupies 3 slots, making the cooler, as I said, much too overpowered. But enough with the thermal and aesthetic design, because now we've got to talk about the specification, and thus also the performance of this card. With 12 gigs of VRAM and a boost clock of around 2500 MHz, this card is capable of playing every game with high setting and a maximum of 1440p. Additionally, the NVENC encoder really shows what it's capable of in video recording, professional tasks, and last but not least, virtual reality performance. I own a Meta Quest 2, and this card allows me to set the resolution at approximately 5400 by 7400 pixels per eye within the main Oculus software. Meanwhile, the encoding resolution was set at around 4000 using the Oculus debug tool. Although this is a hard resolution to support, this GPU had absolutely no issues handling it. On Half-Life Alyx, this beast of graphics card was able to maintain a solid 90 FPS, which is basically the best refresh rate setting for having both a smooth gameplay and a smooth experience from my point of view. Features like DLSS are really nice and come in handy when trying to enable ray tracing, which is not there yet, and not at all. I hate to say it, but if one has a 1080p display like I do, this technology cannot be heavily noticed in the graphics while playing the game, but rather in the performance drop that comes subsequently with such setting. As I mentioned though, DLSS works nicely, bringing Portal RTX from 30 FPS using the second implementation of this technology to 60. Meanwhile, the frame generation toggle, which supposedly also enables DLSS 3, brings the FPS to a playable 90 frames. Is this ideal? Not really, no. While the DLSS 2 has grown to be a really good upscaler, the new variant leaves a lot to be desired due to the artifacts which become noticeable when the frames do not exceed 60. We sadly see the same effect on Cyberpunk with path tracing, which is not able to exceed 30 FPS, as again, 1080p. Here I was not able to test the DLSS options since they were just grayed out for some reason. And don't get me wrong here, I'm just trying to show you that using ray tracing on this GPU is not really an option, as the FPS will make you feel sick considering the money this graphics card costs. To add fuel to the fire, the card is marketed for such graphics settings, which I do not recommend at all. This is because the little graphics upgrade is not even worth it considering that the FPS are just cut in more than half. Though I'm happy to say that even with a 1440p resolution, every game basically exceeds the 80 FPS mark when, of course, neither ray tracing nor DLSS are turned on. If you're planning to use this card for a 4K resolution though, I would advise you to turn DLSS on due to the FPS staying relatively low if you don't do so. What is worth mentioning is the impact that recording has on this GPU. When playing games without DLSS or ray tracing, I noticed only a 7% drop in FPS. However, enabling those features allows the game to run as smoothly as it would without any recording turned on. The testing was done using the OBS software while recording at 1080p with a bitrate of 40,000 kilobytes per second. Streaming was also not an issue for this graphics card, where I lost about 5% of the performance using the AV1 encoder, which is just better for streaming due to the higher quality with lower bit rates. The only professional workload that I have, which includes the use of a GPU, is video editing, where this card really shows its power. Editing a 10-minute 4K video was no struggle for this GPU. I did not have any stutters. Ultimately, I decided to get some numbers out of the thingy and compare it to other computers so that you can get an idea of the performance. Exporting a 2 minute and 27 seconds video took about 1 minute and 27 seconds, followed by an export time of 1 minute and 32 seconds from my MacBook base model with an M1 Pro chip, which is again followed by a larger margin by the same PC build with an RX 6600 to 1 minute and 56 seconds, and last but not least, we have the base 16-inch MacBook Pro from 2019 completing the export time in about 2 minutes and 24 seconds. This testing has been done with an already edited clip that I just threw on the timeline of each of those machines using DaVinci Resolve 18. Power consumption was also great. The card did not exceed 260 watts even under complete workload. I was even able to run it with a high quality Be Quiet 500 watt power supply, making this card one of the best choices if you care about performance per watt. A small issue that I had with this graphics card is the fact that my monitor does not turn on by itself when placed into the sleep mode by the PC when shut down. So we talked about the good and the bad of this computer component, though the worst spot has not yet been touched on, which is namely the price. This GPU costs 700 to 800 bucks. Can you believe that? This price for a mid-tier GPU is just insane and should absolutely not be paid by anyone. Other variants of this card can be $100 cheaper, which is a fine price if you're looking for a GPU. In case you have $200 more to spare though, I would suggest going for the TI version of this card, which is very heavily overpriced, but the performance difference makes it seem justifiable. Now, Nvidia is great if you're looking for editing videos with software like Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, but what we have not yet talked about are GPUs from AMD. If you primarily game but also do some professional work on the side, the OpenGL platform should satisfy your needs. Yes, video editing will perhaps not be as smooth as with the RTX 4070 Ti, but you can get a better performing card for AMD for a much lower price. In fact, the RX 6900 XT can be found either on the used market or on the new market for 700 bucks, which is totally better to buy than all the options Nvidia has to offer right now. After we consider the RX 6800 XT together with the RX 6700 XT, I would totally recommend you get those cards instead of anything from Nvidia has to offer due to the high prices and just the company that is not behaving rightly at the moment. Thanks a lot for watching guys, subscribe and see you in the next one. Bye!